Hello and welcome to Dingoes Ate My Podcast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.
And this week we are discussing the 100th episode of Angel called You're Welcome.
Well, there you go.
Yes, this episode originally aired February 4th, 2004, attracting approximately 3.95 million viewers. Let us start off with the number one film in America this week, Dave. Any guesses?
And nothing is immediately coming to mind fit in that time frame, but I'm guessing it would be something different from last week.
Yes, it is not You Got Served. It is, I'll give you two hints. It's a sequel, but I'm pretty sure you never saw the first movie, so I don't know how much that'll help. It's a comedy film, though.
Sequel with a comedy film.
Yeah, the original came out in 2002, so they really turned the sequel around pretty quick.
Oh. But yeah, there's nothing that immediately comes to mind.
It is the film Barbershop 2: Back in Business.
Okay, that makes somewhat sense. Like, I have vague clips in my head from some of those particular films.
Oh, did you see?
Understandable, but
Did you see Barbershop?
no, I think it's mostly just the case of seeing clips
Okay.
from particular barbershop films.
Okay. Because I quite enjoyed the first one. I don't think I've ever seen the second one, but I remember quite enjoying that. Anyway, let us move on to the number one song in America this week, Dave. Any guesses?
Would it still be Hey Ya from last week?
It is still Hey Ya by Outkast. Yes. Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
it's lasting a fair bit.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Alrighty, so let us talk about video games this week, because, this is it's not a big week in terms of how many games came out, but there are some big ones in here.
Huh?
So, on February 9th, if you had a GameCube, you could pick up a little game called Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. You still there, Dave?
Yes, still here.
Yeah, so Crystal Chronicles was the release on the 9th for the GameCube, which I'm pretty sure was the only Final Fantasy to come to the GameCube.
Pretty much with how things kind of came along, as well as being one of those absolutely ridiculous games that it had multiplayer, but you needed to spend a small mint to actually play the multiplayer.
Oh, because you needed the link cable and a GBA for each player, didn't you?
Exactly. And or to do an absolutely ridiculously weird connection system with 4 televisions and all the connections to them to one GameCube.
Oh, that's insane. Okay, I did not remember that part. On February 9th, if you were a Game Boy Advance player, you could pick up a little game called Metroid Zero Mission.
Neat. Get a chance to play the first Metroid game without actually playing the first Metroid game, because that's torment, and torment is not fun.
Yes. A game I've never played because I've never really played any of the Metroid games.
It looks interesting. I managed to pick it up on a system, and I'm looking forward to playing it. Though, it's a bit of a... It's a bit of a case of... It's kind of a Metroid game with training wheels.
Okay.
Essentially, with the point of an original Metroid is it drops you in, it's like, go explore. And it's like, but I don't know where to go. Go explore! Okay. Where this one is like, you find checkpoints within the game. It's like, cool, you found me. Now go to this place. But isn't that place on the other side of the planet? Go to that place! Okay, Jesus.
Yeah, the one thing that always bothered me with the Metroid and the Castlevania games is there's so much backtracking in them. That annoys me so much.
No, that is true. I've managed to jump into at least one of them fairly recently, but still one of the older ones. And it's a marvelous case of you have a interesting place to explore, but if you don't have the thing to progress, you have to go and find it. And best of luck with that.
Yes. So also on February 9th, if you were a PC gamer, you could pick up an expansion for EverQuest called Gates of Discord.
Neat.
Yes, which I don't think either of us ever played EverQuest, so.
Not with the EverQuest, no. So surprisingly, RuneScape is the one that kind of came out and did like, yes, we are the old RPG thingy.
I think RuneScape's still going, isn't it?
It is.
That's ridiculous to me.
Yeah, if there's enough of a fan base, it will survive through just about anything.
Yeah, but like I remember playing that game in like middle school.
And it's most likely gotten several updates since the last time you played.
Yeah, well, granted, I think I played it for about 10 minutes and I was like, nah, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to February 10th, if you're a PS2 gamer, you can pick up a game called Nightshade, which is not a game.
Not big at all.
Not a game that I remember. It's apparently part of the Shinobi series,
Okay.
which that's interesting. It's some kind of spin-off from there, but I mean, hey, somebody probably liked it. Okay, so we move on. Still on February 10th, if you were an Xbox gamer, you could pick up a little game called Unreal 2: The Awakening.
Pose it yay?
Oh, okay.
Man, I got nothing.
Okay. It's part of the Unreal series. I kind of didn't expect you to be familiar with it, but the Unreal Tournament games are great. You should go play them. February 10th, if you're a PS2 or Xbox player, you could pick up a game called Wrath Unleashed, which looks like some kind of like... they call it a strategy game. Okay, that's not what the box art makes me think of. The box art here, I'll throw it in chat for you, but the box art to me looks more like an action game than a strategy game. Looks like you're going to be fighting dragons and shit, but apparently it's a strategy game.
With that, like the only one thing that vaguely reminds me of a strategy sort of thing, it looks like the tile things of a particular game board game.
It does. It does look like the Settlers board, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. There's definitely. I can totally see that. Yeah, but that was apparently a thing. And finally, if you're a Game Boy Advance player, on February 10th, you could pick up a little game called Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship Tournament 2004.
Because Yu-Gi-Oh is a thing.
In 2004.
Yu-Gi-Oh was a thing.
Okay, I mean, Granted, I don't think I ever watched Yu-Gi-Oh! And I definitely never played any of the games, so I'm clearly not, super up on this, but I didn't think it was still a thing in 2004.
Oh, it is quite a thing. Though, this is kind of the last version of the old series of it, before it starts jumping into the school series, and then the other particular series, and then the card games on motorcycle series, and then the other particular series that's running now that I don't even know what the hell is happening.
I was just going to say, I just looked it up, and I'm like, holy crap, this has been going since 98, and it never really stopped.
So true. It's just kind of a case of, if you're within the actual circle of it, it's still going, but it's not exactly pronouncing itself to the world.
There's a current... Wow, okay. There's been 1,100 episodes.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
According to Wikipedia. Oh my lord. Okay. I did not know Yu-Gi-Oh! Was that popular.
Well, popular and trying a whole bunch of different things within the anime series as well as within the card series.
I mean, it's popular enough that they keep making the show, so,
Oh man, making the show. Sweetie, I've only gone through at least 2 seasons of it. When it first started, then one of the other series, and then watching only a little bit of the card games on motorcycles, and then goddamn, it was just kind of a case of what the flip is happening.
Okay, well, let us move on to the episode.
Indeed. Give us a palate cleanser for that.
Okay. So, Cordelia emerges from her coma after experiencing a vision of the symbols painted on Eve's apartment door and tattooed on Lindsay's chest. After Angel and Wesley collect Cordelia from the hospital, she reveals that the vision which woke her from the coma showed Angel in peril. She finds the symbols from her vision in a book, and Wesley recognizes them as runes to protect and conceal, effective against surveillance. Cordelia apologizes to Wesley for killing Lila while under Jasmine's control. Spike complains to Lindsay, who is impersonating Doyle, that the deranged Slayer chopped off his hands. Lindsay reveals that he had one of his own hands severed. Spike bites Cordelia until Angel fights him off. Spike explains that he was tasting whether she was evil or not, as his sources had claimed. Angel questions the source, and Spike says that it was Doyle. Angel confronts Eve, suggesting that she is working with the Doyle impersonator manipulating Spike. Eve confesses that Lindsay is activating a failsafe left by the senior partners to destroy Angel. When Spike mentions Doyle had a hand chopped off, Angel deduces that Doyle is Lindsay. Angel battles Lindsay, who is strengthened by the ruins. While Angel and Lindsay fight, Cordelia disables the failsafe. Wesley and Fred perform a spell that causes Lindsay's tattoos to disappear, making him invisible to the senior partners. Lindsay is then sucked into a portal. Angel and Cordelia say their goodbyes and share a kiss. Angel receives a phone call informing him that Cordelia has died. He realizes with teary eyes that Cordelia never awoke from her coma. So, what do we think of this episode?
Well, firstly, episode with a ghost. So Spike wasn't the only one that came back corporally. But on the one hand, it was definitely interesting with having Cordelia come back, find out all the information, and her reaction to most of the things. But also them going through a bit of an older episode of Angel, with them figuring out situations, how things was kind of going, finding the bad guy, and just with that. And then just the marvelous gut punch at the end that, yeah, Cordelia helped, but that's about as much as she could do.
Yeah, I like this because we get a resolution to Cordelia's character, which was kind of butchered in season 4. So here at least she gets like a good send-off, I would say.
Indeed.
So yeah, that is very nice that we actually get, something good for her. The interesting thing was this was never intended to be a Cordelia episode.
Okay.
The original plan was to have Buffy pop up in this episode.
Ooh. Like with the last episode, and then Buffy popped up in this one.
Yeah, which you kind of get that they're hinting at in the last episode, because Angel says, like, well, I'll just talk to Buffy about this. And then Andrew says, like, well, who do you think gave me my orders? So, like, they definitely hinted that Buffy would come back, but obviously she didn't for this episode. I'm not going to spoil if something happens later.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought this was quite a good episode, and it's definitely kind of like being used to reinforce kind of like the mission statement of the show.
Yeah, very true. Especially with the start of the episode, Angel being like, "Well, this horribly failed, and we can't catch the bad guy. I quit."
Yes. Alrighty. So. Let us talk about some international titles. Oh, okay. Actually, before we do that, I did want to mention that Spike is playing video games in this episode.
Yes.
Although, he's got, like, an Xbox. And somehow he's managed to get Donkey Kong running on his Xbox.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, typical sort of thing with just running through typical video games that I was playing. If you really want to dive into it, all he was doing was pushing the A button. That does nothing.
Like, you think Microsoft would have been like, hey, you can use the sound effects for Halo or something, like.
But then it probably would have resulted. Oh no, pretty much Spike's reaction throughout that entire sequence would most likely be the exact same.
Yeah, exactly. Spike would have been pissed at Halo. It would have been great. Anyway, let us move on to some international titles. So a bunch of them are just You're Welcome or some variant on that, so I'm just going to skip over those. In French, they really smack you in the face with it. It's called The Return of Cordelia.
Way to go for keeping the secret, French. Jeez.
In German, it translates as people like us. In Hungarian, it translates as devil's plan. In
Comment about it.
in Italian, it's welcome back. And in Spanish, it's the awakening.
Well, someone woke up.
I mean, that is,
And other things too.
yeah, that is technically true. That did happen, in fact. So, did you have anything else about this episode?
No, I think on whole, again, like you mentioned, it was good to at least give Cordelia a bit of a better send off with this episode, as well as kind of reiterating the mission statement of the series, kind of giving the additional boost from here. Though I believe it's the case that we're still early in this season, but it's only going to be for this season that the Angel series will run on to. So not exactly sure how far in the plan they kind of had in mind for how many more episodes they wanted to get through.
We're at about the midpoint of the season right now. Yeah. So, the next episode we will be discussing is called Why We Fight. Okay. So, okay. This is going to be, in part, a flashback episode. Okay? So, we're going to meet a character named Lawson, who's a mysterious man from Angel's past, who's going to arrive at Wolfram and Hart and take the gang hostage. Through flashbacks to World War II, it is revealed that Angel worked with the U.S. Navy to recover a captured German submarine with American sailors on board. The ship also has a secret cargo, a dangerous trio of vampires including Spike, who were kidnapped by the Germans and forced to help the Nazis. When the sub comes under attack, Angel saves Lawson's life by turning him into a vampire. Now, 60 years later, Lawson has arrived at Wolfram and Hart and is seeking revenge.
Because, of course, that's kind of how it goes. But, oh boy, with this being a flashback episode, especially into that time period.
Oh, yes, there's going to be Nazi vampires in the next episode.
Hooray! Just what we need.
Yes. So, until next week, I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.